Hello guys, welcome to Learn from Chess Blitz live show that gives you an opportunity to learn something new about chess while playing against me. If you're for the first time here, I'm playing on Lead Chess against viewers, so you can go there and challenge me for a 5 or 3+2 Blitz game. One more thing you should know is that I'm a chess teacher, so on my YouTube channel there are a lot of instructive chess videos, so you can subscribe to my YouTube channel if your goal is to improve your chess. So you can find the link to my YouTube channel here below. It is bit.ly/Ostrovskiy. You can also follow me on Twitter and become my Twitch subscriber. So once again, all the links are here below. I'm happy that we already have some viewers and a lot of guys are commenting on live chat. So please let me know what is going on to the quality of the stream. So is it good enough to understand me? Is it good enough to hear me, to see me, and so forth? And I already have some challenges, so I'm going to start playing. So here we go. The first challenge from Greg Slag, a 5-minute game. I will accept the challenge. All good, says Chronic students. Thanks a lot. Okay. So our topic today is control the center. So we will start with some conventional things. So I'm playing e4 against Sicilian. The normal way of controlling the center is exchanging c5 pawn. So to bring another pawn to the center, I like to play knight f3, d4, and so forth. There is also another idea of playing like c3 and trying to occupy the center with 2 pawns. So let's try this one. Knight c6, I'm not sure this is the best reply. So as far as I remember, because I also used to play Sicilian with black, normal moves are knight f6, d7, d5, or d6. Knight c6 is probably also playable, but after that I can occupy the center with 2 pawns. And I think I will have some sort of slight advantage. At very least. So everything depends on how black reacts. Alright, b6, that is too much, because now I can start simply grabbing the space, moving my pawns further and deeper in opponent's camp. So what is really pleasant here is that d5 is a tempo move. So I attack the knight, and this knight is forced to the initial position, or maybe it's at e5, but after e5 I will continue the attack with the help of f4. So that is kind of a good example of what to do in a sense of controlling the center and what to avoid. So the thing that white does here is very nice, and what black does here is very dubious at very least. So now I have a lot of pawns in the center. There is an interesting idea of playing e4, e5, just grabbing even more space. The normal move, another one, is just to play knight to f3. And I think both are playable, both are possible. I will just play knight to f3 because I believe that, well, these pawns in the center should be supported by pieces. So making a lot of pawn moves at the very beginning of the game can be not that great. All right. Surit Kumar joined the stream. Hello, my friend. I'm happy you're here, as well as Fuxia, Kramnik student, and Swyhosex, guys who already commented. In general, I want to say thank you to all my followers, to all my supporters. So your support is very important, and I can feel it sometimes even physically, you know. So many thanks to guys who supported me last year financially. That was also very, very good thing, you know. It helped a lot. All right, d6 control and e5, but I'm not sure it will be enough to stop me from playing e5 at some point. I can even try e5 right now. I can also try bishop b5 check, exchanging light squared bishops, then castling quickly, and then get into this aggressive play in the center. I think that, well, without the light squared bishop, black will feel not very comfortable. So let's try this. I'm not sure it is the best thing to do here with white, but it's definitely not the worst. It's definitely not the worst. So taking on d7 and castling, right? Right. Maybe c4, preparing knight at c3 was slightly more accurate. Because now, if black plays knight f6, for example, I probably can't play e5 immediately because of d takes e5, and then d5 will be hanging. So, alright. Black didn't play knight f6, black decided to play e5. Now I have a choice between taking en passant and probably taking on e5, probably taking even the opportunity of playing f4, f5, I don't know. Which one is better? Everything looks very, very attractive, honestly. So f4, f5 tempo move, but it leads to a close position. Maybe it will be not that easy for me to find a breakthrough. So I will take en passant. So queen takes c6 is impossible because of f5. And this means black has to take with the pawn, right? And there are some vulnerabilities in black's camp, including the pawn e6 itself. I also have some slight advantage in development, I think. So what about playing f5 now? Stress on the word en passant. Yeah, that's true. That's true because, you know, I'm usually struggling with pronouncing that correctly. But I'm trying hard. So f5, e takes f5, queen to d5 deserves attention, attacking the rook. Well, I'm not sure, but this looks like a tempo move, first of all, and the way to open up a position, since the king is still here on e8 and feels uncomfortable, I think, when the e file becomes open. This continuation looks very attractive. So I'm sure queen f5 isn't possible because of knight g5. So knight jumps here, and then there is knight f7 possibility, and so on. And this knight e5 also doesn't look great for black. Because of what? I can start with queen d5 move, I think. Yeah, queen d5 looks good. Attacking the rook and then taking on e5. But then knight takes f3 is possible. Alright, so maybe I can just take on e5, attack that pawn. This will be also good for white. I can also consider knight to g5 followed by knight to e6. Again, I'm not sure which one is best for white. I think everything looks very attractive. So I will just stop with this option. Just creating a weakness in black's camp, concrete weakness on e5. Light squares in general are very weak in black's camp. So it will be just the source of a constant headache, I guess. And Fuchs says, time! Yep, I have only 54 seconds. So I definitely have to be faster. Let's put the queen on f3. Attacking the rook on a8. Hoping for castling long. In this case, queen a8 will be extremely annoying. Most likely, of course, the rook will go away right now. Whereafter we can continue with the development. Probably playing something like bishop g5, maybe rook e1 to start with, attacking this e5. So in general, I can just put my knight on e4 or maybe c4, and I will have very pleasant position. Oh, this is a great blunder. So the rook is hanging. Okay. Now it's over, of course, and even 49 seconds on my clock won't stop me from winning this, I guess. queen h5, then queen f3. That is what I thought, says Kravnik student. So queen h5 forcing queen f7 or something, and then going back to f3. Maybe, yeah, but I'm not sure that the queen is that bad on f7, I think. I mean, if compared to d7 position. Strangely enough, my knight is still on b1, so I should develop it probably next move. Queen g7, rook g8, queen somewhere to b7 was also absolutely playable for white. But I just decided to complete a development. I feel really uncomfortable when I'm not developed. So it's like a... All right, it's lost now. So let's have a look at this game at the opening stage. Of course, black misplayed it seriously right from the start. So e4, c5, c3. As we can see, white wants to occupy the center with 2 pawns simultaneously. So black has to deal with this threat. So there are only 3 normal moves. So the one is knight to f6, counter-attacking another pawn, and after e5, knight goes to d5. So as we may notice, in this case, after d4, say cd4, cd4, and d6, black will try to undermine this e5 central pawn, and the knight is in the center, which is also very good. Another option is just to counterattack this way. So it can be considered, and it is probably the most popular option, if I'm not mistaken. The fact is that c3 pawn grabs the square from the own knight. So after ed5 and queen d5, it's not a big problem that the queen is in the center at the early stage of the game, because there is no clear way to attack it, at least right away. So third option is just to play d6, normal Sicilian move, and after d4 there is a chance again to counter-attack the pawn. So knight goes to f6. If d takes c5, e4 isn't possible to capture because of this queen a4 possibility, check, and as you can see, the king on e8 and the knight on e4 will be attacked simultaneously. Instead, black usually plays something like this, and if cd6, then knight takes c4. Okay, black has the initiative, so already 2 pieces are developed. White may achieve the extra pawn maybe at some point, but in the vast majority of cases, it's not enough to compensate this activity. So they are 3 normal options. Knight c6 is definitely bad. I mean, worse than those 3, but after d4, it was still possible to fight for the center with the help of, let's say, d7, d5. I think it is a much worse version of the classic d5, because it gives white much more additional possibilities, but still was playable. Also, after taking on d4, most likely this d5 could have been a good option. So cd4, cd4, d5, and well, everything looks more or less fine, but definitely not b6. So after b6, as we may notice, I just start grabbing the space, I start winning tempi, and I'm making only useful moves, while black losing the time and losing the control in the center. So already here, I guess white could have played something like e4, e5, even this move was completely playable. And after, say, d6, just knight f3, protecting this pawn, supporting it, and I have great advantage in space, great advantage in the center. Something like bishop g4 makes no sense here, because I can play bishop b5 check, forcing the bishop back, and so on. I played knight f3, which is probably not the best move. After d6, I could have played this e5 if I wanted, but I decided to play bishop b5. I think somewhere here I started making not best moves. So after taking on d7, queen d7, I should have played something like c4. In this case, if knight f6, I can play e5. I can also play knight to c3, supporting that pawn on e4. I played castling, and I think black had a good chance to play knight f6, whereafter I'm not sure that position is that clear, at least if compared to what happened in the game. because now e5 is not that cool in the view of taking on e5, taking on e5, and taking on d5. So I think white probably has a compensation. Even after knight g5, there is some annoying attack or something, but knight e5 and the things are not clear. So after knight f6, I wanted to play something like queen e2 or queen d3. And in this case, of course, white just slows down the own play in the center, which gives black some chances to survive it. But after black's e5, I think white is already much better. So I just did this. Knight took on e5, queen f3, so light squares. This bishop is potentially quite bad. This pawn on e5 is weak, and so on. All right, let's go further. And Crowning Student says, 990 subscribers. Any special show planned if you reach 1000? Well, probably there will be a very special video, maybe a special show. I guess it will be also a good idea. So, yeah, I understand what you mean. Okay. Guys, just subscribe. Well, really, 1000 is really near, and you can help reaching this milestone probably even today. So everything depends on you and your will. Okay, let's continue. The next challenger is Surit, so let's play Surit. Next one will be Crowning Student. So you're welcome to actually challenge me for a game, because within this show, I'm usually playing against viewers. Okay, so I wanted to continue with conventional methods of controlling the center, so I will react with the d5, of course. A symbol for subscribers. Yeah, it is also a good idea. By the way, I remember, Foxy, that you actually told me about these symbols. I still didn't give it a try. And probably it will be a good idea to try out this symbol. To be honest, I had no experience in the real tournament chess connected with the symbol. So I played against some guys, but I never provided the simultaneous play myself. Wow, interesting thing, by the way. Will be really cool to try this. Okay, d4, d5, e4. So it's a gambit. So usually white plays c4, and I think there is no reason to avoid accepting this gambit. So I'll take on e4, knight c3, knight f6, protecting the pawn, and I will capture this one as well. So now, as far as I remember, this move is the best one. So in general, the best setup against this gambit is to try to achieve the pawn structure like in Caro-Kann. And it really looks like a Caro-Kann, in fact, already, but without the pawn on f2. So black has kind of extra pawn in Caro-Kann. The thing is, white has the advantage in development, so black has to be very careful. All right, knight to e5 prior to playing bishop to c4. So f7 is not attacked. Maybe I can use it and play something like knight to d7, trying to exchange the knight. And I don't see any reason why not. Excuse me. So knight to d7. This knight on e5 is really annoying, potentially very strong attacking piece. So in general, I have to try to exchange it, right? So let's play knight to d7. Bishop f4. All right. So now if I take on e5, most likely white will capture with the pawn, in which case I can exchange queens. And rook takes d1, then knight has some problems with finding a good square. Maybe knight to h5 is playable, but I don't like the idea of having the knight on h5 there. On the other hand, I have an interesting idea of just playing knight to d5 right now, attacking the bishop on f4. It is also possible just to play e6, in fact. Well, let's play e6. In this case, I control d5 central square additionally, and can occupy the square with the knight once I take on e5, for example. Now it looks much safer to play knight e5 as well, if compared to position with the pawn on e7, because with the pawn on e7 after knight d5, there's an idea of just taking on d5, and then after c d5, there are some ideas connected with knight takes f7, queen to h5 check, and so on. So I think all these things no longer work after I played e6 and control d5 additionally. So let's say now I can play knight e5 without problems. I can also just take on e5 first. I think it's absolutely safe now. Now I can take the queen, simplifying the position, so we shouldn't forget I have extra material, I have extra pawn. And now, well, a very pleasant choice between e takes d5 and c takes d5. Let's take with the e-pawn. In this case, I will just put my bishop on e6 most likely, blockading this e5 pawn, and then we'll see. So first, of course, I will just give this check. It is a tempo development of the bishop. Now, bishop e6, safe square protecting f7, which may be potentially a problem for me, because f file is open, right? And there are some ideas connected with that. Now, I'm just slightly limiting that bishop on f4, preventing bishop g5 or something. And I'm going to castle long, if it is possible. Castling short is also absolutely okay. Maybe castling short will be even better because, you know, I have majority on the queen side, right? So I will play mainly on the queen side with my pawns, in which case the king should be on the other side. Or maybe I can simply have my queen on e7 or somewhere. Well, not that simple to make a decision here. So let's start with something like this. Trying to identify what will happen to the pawn structure on the queen side. b5. Okay, against this I wanted just to play c5, ignoring that and grabbing more space in the center on the queen side. I have a central passed pawn potentially, so this one will go to d4, and I guess I will have very attractive position. So now one rook should be on c8, another one on d8, something like this comes to my mind. So let's castle, just preparing rook to d8. There is a tactical thing connected with the c3 next move that I definitely underestimated. So rook d8, c3, d3, let's say bishop takes b6, d takes e2 is probably what I need. And this probably justifies my idea. Alright, so let's put the rook on d8. I don't know which one, in fact. It doesn't really matter, I guess, but let's put this one. Bishop f3. Rook to d7. Now I'm in time to protect d4, but there will be a annoying pin, right? So my opponent is defending quite good. I think the way to get rid of this pin is just to play bishop c5 and then b6, protecting this guy. Let's try exactly this. Then there is bishop c6. Oh. And by the way, it was possible just to capture in d4 several times and take on b7. So that is strange that my opponent decides to do this with the help of this order of moves. So the opposite order of moves was great. I mean, to take on d4 several times and then bishop b7. Might have been also with the big advantage for black after playing c3. But it could have been also not that clear. I'm not sure that the evaluation of that position is exactly like I want it to be. So now, of course, black is winning with the extra minor piece. Extra bishop. So this rook should definitely support my pawn. Another rook controls the 6th rank, preventing anything connected with the bishop h6 or something. It's a good coordination. And just enough time to convert such an advantage, of course. All right, so interesting game. At some point, I just underestimated White's defense, and very nice that White actually found this, idea with beating my d4 pawn and then playing c3. That was really great thing. I mean, so let's have a look at the opening stage. I don't think the knight e5 is a good idea because it gives me a chance to simplify a position, and when you play a gambit, in a vast majority of cases, you have to avoid simplifications. So I believe that bishop c4 is much more dangerous for black here to start with. So now if I play, for example, something like bishop to g4, you can take on f7 and then to play knight e5. So it's not very good for black to play bishop g4 here. So probably I have to play something like bishop f5. And now you can think of playing knight e5 because now it is a tempo move. And after e6, let's say you can make castling. Also tempo move, now you have a threat of just taking on f7. Let's say I play a random move like knight d7. So takes f7, takes on f5 looks quite annoying for black, so sort of idea in such a situation. So black has to come up with much more accurate order of moves or something like that. After knight e5 and knight d7, I think I'm fine already. So if you play bishop c4, here I can take on e5, I think, without problems. Now I can take on d1, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you take with the knight, I play knight g4 attacking this pawn. I think should be fine. If well, we find the position of the knight in g4 not very good, because in fact it may be quite awkward after bishop f4, then simple central move knight d5 should work fine. So no problems. After king takes on d1, I guess in addition to knight g4, same idea, attacking e5 and f2, there is also an idea of playing bishop g4 check and knight to d7. So something like this. Yeah, I have these typical problems with arrows. Actually, they are not supposed to be drawn correctly. But okay, so knight g4 should be just fine. Attacking f2 and e5 simultaneously. So that is the problem. That's why you played bishop f4 most likely. But after e6, okay, I control d5, and this is what I wanted to achieve. So once again, as we may notice, it's like Caro-Kann. Probably not very good version because my bishop is on c8, not on f5 or g4. But still, it's a pawn structure from Caro-Kann. They think that I have extra pawn here. And, well, looks like just controlling this central d5 square, black achieves a good position. Queen d3 is probably not that great. I would have played something like queen f3 maybe, preparing castling, not blockading all bishops, so your bishop is going to occupy c4. What is really important, you avoid exchange of queens. So now to knight e5, d5, okay, we have the same like in the game, but I can't exchange queens, which is very good for you because you're pawn down and you want to come up with a counterplay. Queen d3, all right, I just took on e5, took on d3, and after that, of course, I'm obviously much better. So knight e5, e5, simply extra pawn, and so forth. Okay. Yeah. Do you play any sports, Andrey? Sports, sorry. Misread that. Not really. Not really. Why h6 in the 14th move and not a5? Let's have a look at 14th move. A3. I played h6. Because in fact, I wasn't afraid of b4. I wasn't afraid of b4. So usually when you have a pawn minority on the flank, you should avoid playing with pawns there because you create some hooks for your opponent. So b4 is a typical hook for my a7 pawn. After that, I can undermine that pawn, open up the a file, or just simplify creating a passed pawn. So I wasn't afraid really of this b4. I actually wanted white to play b4. After that, I thought I would have much better perspectives on the queen side. So h6 is in fact just a cheesy move. I don't think it is the best one here. But it's not that bad, in fact. h6 is okay. I started playing badly slightly later. So to a5, sorry, I just missed the moment. Here it is, yeah. After a5, b5, c5, a4, c4, bishop here, d4. I think my main mistake was to castle the wrong side. So here I should have castled here. And I'm fine already. I'm absolutely fine because there is no counterplay based on this pin. Because if bishop f2, first of all, my pawn is already protected. Second of all, I can simply protect the bishop. And that's it. So I can put my bishop on c5, then king to b6, and so on. So the king is actually needed here. I don't know why I play this stupid castling short, where after I had real problems. So after rook d8, bishop f3, very strong move. So c3 doesn't work, I believe, after d3. Interesting tactics. So if bishop takes b6, I take this bishop, attacking two rooks. Rook d8 isn't possible because e takes f1 with the checkmate, which means after bishop d8, I just take on f1, then take on d8 with the extra minor piece. So bishop f3 was very strong. And now after this and c3, I have a problem. So after rook d8, I think the best way to play this was just to take on d4 several times like this, and then on b7. And I'm not sure what is the evaluation of this position. Maybe white played even better. White played h3 just to avoid these problems with the back crank. And after bishop c5, yeah, here, instead of taking on b7, this cd4. Takes, 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 and bishop takes b7. And I'm not sure in this position. So I can play c3, of course, but there is rook c1. And then, I don't know, this pawn may be also potentially very dangerous. At very least, it was the best chance. At very least, it was the best chance. And Kramnik student says that also b7 is defended in case of castling long. Exactly. So castling short was just very bad. Okay. So, hi Andrey, I followed your many Chess24 streams. Glad to see you live on Lead Chess. You're so wonderful chess mentor. Thanks a lot. Wow, that is really pleasant. That's really pleasant comment. All right, let's continue. And the next was Kramnik student. Let's play Kramnik student. So, continuing with conventional methods of controlling the center. This time, however, let's play something typical for Sicilian. d4. And what about taking with the queen? I mean, it's not the main line, of course. But in this situation, as we may notice, white manages somehow to save the queen in the center as well, in addition to the pawn e4. Which may be quite good. Maybe not. But centralized queen actually controls a lot. And with the help of this approach, with the help of this queen d4 line, we are making the transition to the second approach of controlling the center with pieces. So as we may notice, it is kind of combining two approaches, so with the pawn and with the piece. So bishop goes to g5 here. Now I can take on f6, but I think it's better just to castle. So what is the plan here? Usually white attacks on the king side. So how to prepare this attack? h4 move is usually played. It is something typical. Rook to e1 protecting e4 is another typical idea. Then queen goes to d2. And then at some point, knight goes to d4. So actually queen and the knight are exchanging places. Not like that. I mean, queen just goes away to allow the knight occupy this d4. Because queen is not needed on f3 100%. So let's start with the rook e1 move. Additionally, protecting this e4. It wasn't handy, but it is very important pawn. And I have some ideas connect with the knight e5 maybe, if the king remains on e8. So it's a multi-purpose move. Queen to a5. Now exerting some pressure on my bishop g5. So most likely now, it's a good moment to protect the bishop with the help of this move. Just to avoid any sort of tactics connected with knight to e4. Moreover, I'm going to put this knight f3 on d4 square slightly later. And this means my bishop on g5 should be protected, right? Yeah. That's the point. And black has to find a way to counterattack somehow, because my plan is clear. My plan is clear. I want to attack on the king side. And there is the question from X, doesn't it drop the d6 pawn? Probably you mean something like bishop takes f6, but after bishop takes f6, g takes f6 is possible. So black is not forced to recapture with the bishop. It's possible to take with the pawn. So another comment, king b1 is always a good move. Not always, in fact, but in the vast majority of cases, this protects a2. But maybe I will save the time on that. Maybe I will just play a3. But a3 may be a hook. I mean, if black plays b5, there is a threat of playing b4, and then a2 is hanging. And there are two ways to protect a2 pawn. Just to play king to b1, or to play a3. So I'm not sure which one is better in this particular case. b5. All right, so b4 is exactly this threat. I'm not sure that's... I can play king b1, in fact, because of b4. And in this case, if knight goes away, there is a problem with the e4. Or maybe it looks like the problem with the e-pawn. Let's see, so... king b1, b4, knight somewhere, then e5 even is possible, just attacking the queen first, and then e4 may drop. Yeah, so I will play a3 instead. Mateo, hi Andrey, nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Thank you. Castles. Now it's time to make a decision. Now it's time to make a decision how to attack there. By the way, g4 is possible now because the knight on f6 is pinned. I can start with queen d2 as well. Queen d2 is a tempo move, creating a threat of knight d5 at some point. But knight d4 is the main idea, of course. But again, I'm not sure that's all this works fine. So maybe king b1 should be played, in fact. Just one more waiting move prior to starting something active. Because, you know, against queen d2, it is possible to play b4. I'm not sure I'm ready to meet that. Now I'm slightly better prepared for this b4 if it happens. So I can go with the queen, then knight to d4, and so on. And at some point I will play g4, f4, and just a typical Sicilian attack. So situation in the center here should be definitely taken into consideration because, well, if white loses the control of central squares, black can play e5, d5, quickly activating his pieces. And this may be very annoying. All right, now what to do? I don't want to play knight a2, honestly. Queen b4 is also not a very good looking move. But I'm not sure I have anything better than that. No, queen b4, queen c7, come on. That will be stupid. Okay, what to do, what to do, what to do? Let's play knight a2. I don't like the idea of b4, but that is definitely not what white should do in this line and in Sicilian in general. So if I'm forced to play knight a2, I've definitely made a mistake earlier somewhere. Rook c8. Now it's time. It's time to bring the knight to the center, right? I wanted to do this many moves ago, just to play with the queen, then to bring the knight to d4 square and to start my attack. Maybe my attack is already late, but it's better to start right now anyway than to wait until black just checkmates me on the queen side. Okay, let's go. So the things go crazy a bit. Sort of bluff, I think. But there are some threats, in fact. Alright, I have another direction. g6 was probably a mistake. I guess bishop takes g5 should have been played 100%, because now I can't see how to prevent a checkmate. Yeah. So, black was very close to win the game, I think. So, instead of playing g6, bishop takes g5 should be played. And this is not a checkmate, so king simply runs away through e7. And I don't think I have a good follow-up here. Yeah, maybe I have some attacking possibilities, no question. So I can consider something like knight f5, let's say. I can consider like queen h8, queen takes g7, attacking the bishop first. And the next move will be something like rook h8, and so on. So I have some annoying threats here. It's not completely stupid, I mean, just sacrifice the piece like I did. But still, I think it was quite good for black, quite good. Maybe here, just to put the knight to... I'm not sure where. Maybe to d7 or something. No, I guess knight d5, the best move, just a central one. Black should be just fine. after bishop takes g5, I guess. But well, Kremlin's doing very, very good, so you're very close. After rook h1 and g6, I guess it's over. So queen h3, there is no defense. There's simply queen h8 and goodbye. As for previous play, White definitely made a mistake somewhere here. I think instead of playing queen to a5, instead of playing h4 against queen a5, I should have played this king to b1. So you were right in the chat saying that king b1 is always a good move. In this particular case, it was definitely the best, I'm sure. So what is the point here? I protect a2, so now my knight is free to move. And for example, after castling, I can probably play something like queen d2. So bishop is protected just enough to not to be afraid of something like knight e4 or something. And if b5, well, here I have knight to d5 possibility. So b5 doesn't work in this line. I'm just in time to accomplish everything. So b5 is kind of stopped after queen d2 here, and black has to find a better square for queen because knight d5 is a very annoying threat here. If black plays b5 immediately after king b1, so let's say king b1 and b5 right now, I guess I can consider something like knight to d5. Let's have a look at this just quickly. I'm not sure it is a good move, but it looks like a typical thing, right? I have all the pieces developed here, and most likely, well, black is struggling after ed5, let's say. So bishop d5 is probably possible, but what about rook takes e7, king e7, and queen d5? This may be annoying potentially for black. At least I have some compensation here. But now I see that computer suggests even a better move here. So queen d2 immediately, yeah, protecting everything and creating a sort of knight e5, creating a sort of knight to d4. Yeah, probably the most important thing here was to be faster, right? So I lost several tempi. I played a3, king b1, and no surprises that black was already good after that. So what was played there? Castling was suggested as a better move. So black started with the b5, and here it says e5 takes c5, knight takes c5. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, by the way, why didn't I consider this e5 move? That's strange. It looks very simple and very logical, right? The king is still in the center, bishop is now hanging, and if the bishop goes away, I take on f6, and there is queen d7. If the bishop doesn't go away, well, there are other ideas like bishop f6, knight f7, a lot of different ideas, in fact. So yeah, I missed this opportunity, but okay, let's forget about it and focus on this position. Yeah, so in this position, black is already good. So black is just in time with the attack on the king side, with creating at least some threats. And after knight a2, I think it was even possible to start with the h6 or something. So h6 deserves serious attention here. Just attacking my bishop, clarifying the things in the center. Maybe something like e5 also deserved attention, just attacking my queen. And I'm not sure where to go with this guy. So e4 should be protected somehow, so maybe queen d3. And now even something like bishop d7 followed by bishop e6. So just a neither setup, but maybe it's just too slow. Maybe it makes sense to start with the h6, clarifying the things with that bishop first, and then to see what to do. All right, but rook c8 should be also okay. In this case, however, I start actually doing something. But maybe computer will refute the whole thing. So e5, d5, fe5. Yeah, it says just knight d5 right now. Instead of taking on g5 after hg5, I have some counterplay. Okay. In any case, interesting game, very interesting game. So we made a transition from the conventional ways of controlling the center, just occupying the center with pawns, to some mix of having pawns and pieces in the center. Now I'm going to try the same approach in the next game. And then at some point we will go to just controlling the center with pieces exclusively. So who is next? Who is next? Let's play Canada 84. Accept the challenge. Okay, let me just get rid of one guy. So there is a problem with one person. I want to just ban. Yeah. Okay. I think it's fine now. It's fine now. Should be fine. Yeah. Okay, so let's focus on the game. Canada 84, sorry for this pause. Knight to f6. Now we start controlling the center, not only with pawns, but with pieces. And this is also just a possible approach of doing it. The thing is, it doesn't really matter what you do, you still have to control the center. So I don't occupy d5 with my pawn, but I still control it with e6 pawn and knight f6, okay? So bishop goes to b4. Again, I'm controlling central squares e4 and d5 with the help of my bishop, because bishop now pins the knight, which controls that squares. So that is about this approach of controlling the center with pieces mainly, and also occupying some central squares with pawns. Knight to f3. Against this move, we have a lot of different continuations. This is Nimzo Indian defense. We can play b6. And now we will have sort of mix of Nimzo Indian and Queen's Indian defense. All right. SF Ganbaru says, "Hi Andrey, good games and instructive comments. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy this helps." All right. Bishop goes to f4. All right, so it's definitely not the main line, definitely not what white usually does here, but it's just a playable approach. So now I think bishop should go to b7, controlling additionally this d5 and e4 squares. I have a very hard time against d4 and I'm looking for a single opening to let me focus on playing chess. Any ideas? Queen's Gambit accepted, says Chronic Student, and it's probably a good idea, right? Because you really like yeah, it just excludes enormous quantity of lines that you have to learn if you play, for example, Nimzo Indian or Queen's Indian. Yeah, so it's definitely easier to learn in the sense of memorizing the lines, and it's very solid and very good opening line, I guess. Right. The question, is this English defense or Owen defense? It is actually was supposed to be Nimzo Indian, but it's now kind of hybrid of Nimzo Indian and Queen's Indian defenses. But this English and Owen defenses have also similar ideas. The difference is that in that defenses, black usually plays f7, f5 first, and then knight to f6. Here, as we may notice, it's slightly different. Okay, now I guess I will castle first, because the center is controlled now, just sufficiently. White can't play e4, white can't play d5. Everything's fine. Bishop goes to d3. Okay. What about making this move? It's not necessarily very good. It's not necessarily the part of Black's plan. But what I'm trying to do is to grab this one. But White played h3 and prevented that. So my idea was to play knight to h5 after White's castling, let's say, and to grab that dark squared bishop. Now it's of course impossible. So we should focus on something else. I can try the following thing. I will take on c3. bc3. Now White has pair of bishops, but at the same time White has some problems with the pawn structure. So these pawns are weak. Now I just play d6, controlling e5 square. So as you can see, I don't occupy central squares d5 and e5 with my pawns, but I just control these squares sufficiently. That is an important thing to understand. If you don't occupy central squares with your pawns, you still have to control those squares. With your pieces, with your pawns, doesn't really matter. And now I can do knight to d7. Again, controlling important squares. Now, at some point, I will play c7, c5, fixing this pawn. At some point, I will put my bishop on a6, rook on c8, and will attack these weaknesses along the c file. Of course, if my opponent gives me a chance to do that. At the same time, I have to understand that e4 at some point will be controlled by White sufficiently. For example, right now, it's possible to play e4 already, so I have to do something with this. I can put my knight on e4, but I like the idea of trying bishop to e4, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe knight e4 is still better than that. Not quite sure. Let's try knight to e4. In fact, if White takes on e4, then after bishop e4, White no longer has pair of bishops. And there is maybe no compensation for these weaknesses on the queen side. Queen c2 attacking my knight on e4. Now I can support my knight with the pawn f5. And you know, h6 no longer looks that stupid, because at some point I can start the attack on the king side, also pushing my pawns like g5, g4, and so on. So knight e2. Now I guess I can play knight f6 if I want, but do I really want that? I think that is what I want, in fact. So taking on d2 and e5. And now it feels like I control the center much better than White. So at very least my presence in the center is better now. So White has more pawns here, but I control more important squares in general. And it's not clear what to do with that bishop f4. Okay, goes there, and now I can play f4 myself. And this bishop will have hard times finding a good way of being activated. Oh no, I'm blundering. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I just blundered the pawn. Oh my god. Yeah, that was stupid. So queen f6 should have been played, of course, obviously, instead of playing f4. Now I have hard times finding a compensation for this great mistake I made. Oh, that was very bad. That was very bad. Yeah, I forgot he can take with the bishop. Now, White is obviously winning. Okay, that was very close at least to a perfect strategy, but I blundered, simply blundered. Okay, shit happens, all right? That is painful. It's really painful. But I have some advantage in time, so yeah, unfortunately I will have to use it to win. But d5, this is dubious. This is dubious. Now it weakens c5. And I'm not sure that my position is still much worse. It was very bad just a move ago. But now after this d5, I'm no longer that sure it is that bad. So this weakness is on c4 and c3. Won't give white and is alive here. Okay. But white is still better, of course. Okay, I won on time. Very bad game, in fact. But let's have a look at what happened when I played f4. Because at that moment, I was already much better, I think. So after bishop g3, instead of playing this f4, I should have played something that would prepare this. For example, it was possible to play queen to g5. Just preparing f4. Right? So now f4 is ready. White can't play f4 himself because bishop will be hanging. White can't move the bishop because there is a queen g2 checkmate. So bishop on b7 is very strong here. If white plays something like d5, well, this closes my bishop, but this weakens completely this c5 square. And this is what black usually tries to achieve, something like this. Knight is just perfect here, blockading this pawn c4, c3, controlling central square e4, and this bishop can be reactivated at some point through c8, let's say, and then after f4, it will still have some good job on the board, good work. It can go to a6 at some point, attacking c4, so d5 is definitely very bad. But what to do? h4 is probably worth trying, but I'm not sure what to do after, say, queen g4, or maybe just simple queen g6 move, just keeping the tension. Maybe queen g4, just creating this threat f4 again. F-pawn can't move. Bishop goes to e2. Now I can consider something like queen g6. Again, f4 is a threat. So white has to make an annoying decision, I think. So it's not that simple to find a good move. Even if white stops me from playing f4, okay, I just bring another rook to the center. So now it controls e5. And at some point I will be ready to play f4. So I will play something like queen to f2 or f6 and f4 and so on. So that was a very bad move, I mean, playing f4. But in general, black's strategy was good. So as you can see, we started with controlling the center with mainly pieces. But I also occupied some squares to control central squares with pawns. So I played e6 to control d5 additionally. A bit later, I played d6 to control e5 additionally. So the central complex is under control. I didn't occupy central squares, but I still controlled them. That's the point. So it doesn't matter which approach you use. So occupying the center with pawns or not occupying that, you still have control central squares. That's the point. All right, let's play another game. The next is Basim Ismail. And I'm playing with black again. All right, maybe this game will be better than the previous one. d4. All right, let's play the same. Knight f6. Bishop to f4. Okay, but against this, I usually play d5. So against London, I guess there is nothing better than playing this. Just aggressive counterplay in the center. All right. So occupying some central squares with pawns and controlling other central squares with pieces. All right. Bishop to d3. Wow. I guess knight to f3 is the line. Knight to d2 is the line. Maybe knight d2 is the best one. The most accurate move. But bishop d3 is kind of dubious in my opinion. Because now after queen b6 and queen b3, c4 takes b6, bishop is under attack. So bishop goes to c2, I can play b5. And if a3, I can play b4. Yeah, so I think it's not the best move, this bishop d3. So when the knight is on d2 instead of bishop on d3, white is not forced to take on b6, white can go queen c2 back. And that is the point. And now, I guess I have something straightforward. So b5, b4 looks very attractive. Yes, true, this bishop on c2 stops me from playing bishop f5. But I can consider something like bishop g4, bishop h5, bishop g6, exchanging that bishop. Also an interesting idea. Why not? Let's play b4 though. Getting rid of the doubled pawn. And potentially grabbing a lot of space. So now I think I can even consider b3 next move, right? So a2 will be pinned. So b3 should be considered as a threat, right? So b3, bishop d1, rook takes a2, looks almost winning for black. So that's why I don't like bishop d3. So bishop d3 is definitely something wrong. So it gives me some tempi, absolutely unnecessary, well, decreases white's possibilities to react against this queen b6. Don't know. Looks like unnecessary complications for white. Now bishop goes to d1. I think I can occupy this great position with the bishop. And again, it is a tempo move. I want to take on b1 and take on a2. Knight goes to d2. Okay, now what? B takes c3 is already very, very attractive. But why not, for example, e6 first? Connecting my bishop to b4 square and to this diagonal f8, a3. You know what? I can even consider something like b3, a3, bishop takes a3 at some point. I can play b3, forcing a3, and then start this typical maneuver knight e7, knight b6, and knight to a4. But alright, white plays b3 himself, so we can forget about it. What about taking on c3 now? And then playing bishop b4. This looks very attractive. Taking on c3 followed by bishop a3 is also sort of very good move. Very good idea. So let's do it. I guess it should be almost winning for black. It's very close because I control important squares. So bishop a3, knight to b5, bishop b2, knight to c7 check. King goes to d7. Takes a8, rook on a1 is hanging. I can't see a defense. So bishop a3 looks great. Bishop b4 also looks fantastic. Bishop b4 looks even better, you know. So let's play bishop b4. And now bishop a3 is a tempo move, right? Yep. It's kind of improvement of bishop a3 idea, because now if rook moves, it moves to a1 or something. Or I just grab that exchange immediately, like this. So I just take it. Yeah. And I just come back, right? Coming back to b4. Now a2 is under pressure, knight e4 is a threat. Lots of different ideas. Okay, now let's take here to prevent the activation of bishops. Prevent opening of the position. And let's just castle. So, material advantage, very big one. Should be winning. Should be winning position for black. So the question about b3, is there a breakthrough for black? Yeah, after b3, I will show you after the game, there is a typical maneuver of bringing the knight to a4, which is usually very annoying. All right, let's take here, let's take on b3. Just simplifying the position. Now knight b7 is a threat. After rook b8, knight will go to c5, protecting b3. I can deal with this with the help of just rook a1 move. But I'm not sure I have to lose the pawn. So why not just b6 to start with? $998. So almost 1,000 subscribers. Guys, you're awesome. So we need 5 more today. We need 5 more today. Why 5? Why not 2? Because, you know, YouTube sometimes unsubscribes somebody. So we need a clear result. Like, we need not just 1,000, but slightly more to ensure that tomorrow when I will wake up, there will be still 1,000. 1K. Okay, knight to e4. Again, another blunder. He can take on e4, knight d6, then takes on e4. But in that case, I will just win that pawn on b3 anyway. So it's not a big deal. Now I can grab the pawn on b3 with the help of knight d2. But first, I'm tempted to start with rook c2, just occupying the second rank. f3. Now knight d2, right? Right. Attacking the rook and the pawn. And there is no rook f2 because of rook c1 threat. Rook e1. All right, now I can take. Now I can take here. $1K shift, really? Oh my god, that's fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. So now I have 2 rooks on the second rank and there is no chance for white, not even a single chance to survive it. Okay, so let's have a look at what happened here. So bishop d3, as I said before, I don't like this idea at all. So usually knight d2 is the best way to play this. Because now, if I play queen b6, for example, you just play queen to b3. And after c4, you don't take on b6, but you play queen to c2. Now it's possible because bishop on d3 isn't handed. Bishop is still there. And why knight d2? Because I don't have bishop f5 immediately. There is no such a possibility. So, I mean, if you play something like knight f3 instead, I can play this queen to b6. And now after queen b3, c4, queen c2, I have bishop f5 move. So point is queen f5, queen b2, which means that after that you have to play something like queen c1. and this means I just developed the piece with the tempo, which is great. Bishop is very good usually on this diagonal. I guess you felt that during the game. That's why knight d2, in fact. That's why knight d2. Now queen b6, queen b3, c4 isn't great for black. After queen c2, there is no bishop f5 because there is no longer queen b2 winning the rook on a1. So if I want to play the bishop f5, I should prepare it somehow this way. But in this case, you can actually play something like f3, preparing e4, which is very annoying. So if I play bishop f5, you can probably try this e4, something like this. Additional ideas for white here. Also, you can start undermining the c4 pawn with the help of b3, which is also quite annoying for black. Bishop d3, difference now. Queen b6, attacking b2. Queen goes here, now c4. Obviously, now you're forced to take on b6. And if compared to, for example, other moves like knight f3 or knight d2, here I have extra tempo, so your bishop is under attack. The only advantage here is that, well, your bishop is on this diagonal, but as you can see, I just played b5. Why does Simon Williams recommend bishop d3? I have no idea why Simon Williams recommends bishop d3. I just don't like it. All right. It depends on some move orders. He shows that maneuver he just did if e6 played. Yeah, if e6 played, it's different story. Come on. Yeah, if e6 played, it's different story. But here it's definitely not great for white. So look, I played b5. a3 doesn't stop me from playing b4. It doesn't really help white. I mean, so a b4 isn't possible if cb4 just take with the knight. Look, it's perfect for black simply. And, well, after b5 and knight e2, which was played in our game, I played b4. There was a threat of b3, so there is no time for, let's say, knight e2. Okay, it was probably possible to play this, by the way. So now if I play b3, bishop b1, but looks extremely ugly, but still playable. Still playable. So b3, bishop b1. Unless there is something tactical after bishop f5. I don't think so, though. But I guess I can simply continue development of my pieces, like bishop g4, f3, bishop h5. If g4, bishop g6. If castles, then something like e6. But now g4 is possible. Yeah, this may be not that clear. So maybe knight d2 was what the best move. In which case, I guess black should take on c3, in fact, instead of playing that. And after bc3, there are some weaknesses like c3 and a2, which I also can attack at some point. Not sure. All right, knight d2 should have been played. Bishop d1 is definitely a mistake. Now I put my bishop on f5, and I have a great position. So knight goes to d2, I play d6. So there was a question about the breakthrough in case of b3 and a3. b3 was another interesting move that I considered during the game. So in this case, after a3, let's say, because I don't think a4 is great, it will make the a4 pawn very vulnerable. There is a typical maneuver I can start. So bishop a3 and b2 is another idea, but the knight on d2 is actually controlling b1 square, so it's not necessarily winning. So typical idea here is to bring the knight to a4, which will cause a big problem in white's camp. So knight d7, the start of the maneuver. So the knight goes through b6 to a4, attacking b2 pawn, and this may be really annoying. So if f3, let's say, I can probably start with something like bishop d3. e5 move should be also considered here. So if d takes e5, then I can take with the knight on e5, or maybe play knight c5, creating sort of knight d3 and knight a4 simultaneously. So that is something that looks simply horrible for white. So after knight d2, I play d6, which is also not that bad. And b3 was probably too much. So b3 weakens a lot. I guess the best chance was to play f3 here. Still trying to come up with sort of counterplay based on e4 or maybe g4, g5, something like this. In which case I wasn't sure. So b3 with the idea of taking on a3, I don't think it's good. So after rook a3, ba3, and b2. All right, knight controls b1 square. That's important. And after, let's say, something like e4, It may be winning for white, maybe not. I'm not sure. So bishop to c2 deserves attention here and so forth. Even if it doesn't work, white can play something like bishop a4, and white should be fine after this. So it just looks like the exchange, right? So king goes here, bishop is under attack. White has pair of bishops, so this position could be even better for white after grabbing more space and so on. So it's unclear. All right. But the same maneuver based on knight e7, knight b6, knight a4 was possible. Another idea was just to take on c3, in fact. And after, say, bc3, there is bishop a3, creating sort of bishop b2, extremely annoying threat. If knight takes on c3, then I have the access to d3 square with both my knight and the bishop, so I can choose. That is probably the best move, knight c3 here. But as you can see, this position is quite annoying for white, so I play knight b4 and so on. You analyze and blitz so deep. Well, it's not about playing blitz, it's mainly about giving you some important information to make you learn something new, right? That's the idea. So I'm here mainly to teach, and the show is called Learn from Chess Blitz. So that's the point. This analysis is actually why people come and see this, right? Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. So that's why I don't like bishop d3, but we understood that it was actually playable after knight e2. So maybe not that dangerous for black, but quite playable for white after knight e2, preparing this bishop to b1. So it deserves attention, and it's, well, requires more analysis, I mean, this line in general. All right, let's continue. Let's go further. Next challenge will be accepted from, I don't know, let's play Maldino. Hi, Andrey. How do you do to not get frustrated when calculating long variations? It is frustrating to calculate for a long time, to fail to find the move. How do you not probably get frustrated when calculating long variations? I don't quite understand the question. In fact, I'm never frustrated by calculating. So, I mean, if I don't actually find anything, I'm just reducing the things and try to come up with the best possible in this concrete position. So, calculations are not about frustration. They are about actually getting more information about this position that helps you come up with a better decision and so forth. Okay. E4. All right. So what to play in this game? So we made a transition to actually controlling the center with mainly pieces. But against E4, it's quite hard to find the normal possibility of controlling the center with pieces mainly. But I think C5 can be a good choice to describe the things. So let's play C5. Knight F3 and E6. So, at very first glance, it looks like just saying that rules of chess don't work. In fact, I'm doing not that bad moves with my pawns, right? So A6 controls very important B5 square. E6 controls very important central square D5. C5 controls D4. So every pawn controls something important in this position. Why B5 is important? Because once I play something like D5, there is bishop B5 check possibility and so forth. Let's say right now I can consider playing D7, D5. Just occupying the center with the pawn. Let's do it. Anyway, it is the best move. in this position, in my opinion. In many cases, it may be annoying to play d7, d5 against this knight f3, knight c3 because of ed5, ed5, and bishop b5 check. But now I control this square, so why not d5? Surit Kumar goes away. Bye-bye. Thank you for being with us. d4. All right. So now it's a question. It's a good question what to do. Maybe I should play just c4. And this will be something like French defense. This may be considered. Knight f6 is also an interesting try here. Also leading to sort of French defense positions. Unclear, I think. Unclear, I think, what to do, but I guess it's okay. Because if white, for example, plays e5 now, I can play knight to d7, and if compared to normal French defense, white made this a4 move, which is definitely not very sound in French defense. It weakens b4, it achieves not that much. So I will definitely have some chances if compared to classical, conventional French defense. Now cd4 is interesting in my opinion. Knight d4, e5, and then d4. Well, there are so many different interesting options for black. Oh my god. I don't even know what to do. So if d5 takes c4, then knight takes c4, obviously. That's why I'm tempted to try cd4, because I'm not sure white has a clear way of reacting to that. Let's try it. It's very tempting to try. By the way, Twihozek says very interesting thing. My experience not to get frustrated is to realize when there is a dead end, to accept necessity to find another path. Perfect. Great. Just amazing. That is exactly what you guys should follow. No frustration. Just squeezing the information about the position with the help of calculations. That's it. If one line doesn't work, search for another one. That's it. Queen d4. All right, now I can play knight to c6 with the tempo, attacking the queen. And once again, look at this. a6 plays a great role. Because in many cases, in such a situation, it is possible to play bishop b5, pinning my knight, pinning this knight c6. White is my knight. All right, so pinning the knight c6 and kind of saving the queen on d4. But there is a6 controlling that square. Bishop f6, okay, I will take with the pawn. Now I have pair of bishops, and my dark squared bishop no longer has a counterpart. Now I guess I will get a great position in the center. Once the queen goes away, I have a feeling that I can play even d4, grabbing the space in the center. And queen e3 gives me a chance to play this d4. Oh my god. But then castles. That's the point. Okay. d4, castles. But I take on e3. Come on. Rook d8. I have extra rook, right? Yeah, this definitely wins. So queen e3 is just the move that gives me a chance to win on the spot. I expected something like queen d2 maybe queen d3, but queen d3 was also not very attractive because of d4 followed by knight to b4 jump. Queen d2 was also not that great in the sense of bishop going to b4. So You know, I think white's position is already quite dubious after all this. But after d4, there's just an extra minor piece and no compensation. And by the way, that is about flexibility. So I decided, prior to playing this game, I decided to control the center with the pieces, right? But once I realized that d7, d5 is the best move, and it was the best move for sure, occupying the center with the pawn, I just changed the approach easily. So don't limit yourself with unnecessary things. So for example, today I'm going to play positional chess, or today I'm going to play attacking chess, or today I'm going to control the center with the pieces. Today I'm going to control the center with the pawns. Today I'm going to occupy the center with the pawns, and today I'm not going to occupy the center with the pawns. It's a bullshit. Just play what position requires. That's the idea. Fork and a knife hit there. Okay, extra minor piece. And my queen can stay here in the center, I guess. Bishop b4 is very attractive. h5 is also a move, just chasing that queen. I can also play just bishop d7 followed by castle. Bishop d6 is the tempo move, attacking the queen, but there is queen g7, so I don't really like it. So let's play bishop b4, attacking e4 pawn. If queen goes to g7, there is bishop takes c3. So bishop b4 prevents queen g7 and prepares something like, let's say queen e4 is possible right now. I can also try this first. Queen e5, offer in the exchange. And if f4, then queen takes e4. Doesn't really matter in this position. What black chooses, the point is to prevent white's counterplay. And white's counterplay can be based on, I don't know, d-file. But I control almost all the squares along the d-file, so it's not realistic to achieve anything there with white. It can be also connect with the queen g7 or something, but as you may notice, it's no longer the case. Now I can simply castle. There is an interesting thing, you know, disliked because of you Russian men, but you speak English. You birth in the USA. Well, first of all, I'm not Russian. I'm Ukrainian, all right? It's a big difference. Maybe not for you, but for me it's a big difference. And I speak English because it is an international language, you know? So I kind of reach out to a broader audience. All right? And after all, it is my choice which language to speak. And yes, I do speak Russian as well. And you know what? You are too cocky to be here. So I will just ban you. Goodbye. So, let's talk about this game. So it was quite easy for me. Wise Gene. Goodbye, Wise Gene. Find another channel where people speak exclusively Russian. You Russian lower. E4, C5, knight f3, E6, knight C3, A6. Yeah. So here, d4 leads with a transposition to very famous line. So cd4, knight e4, b5 is a well-known tabia or something like this. So d4 is definitely the main line and probably the best move for white here. Why I don't like a4? Look, I played a6 with the purpose of controlling b5, preparing b5, that's true, so a4 looks very logical. At the same time, against knight c3, if white doesn't occupy the center with the d4 pawn, the most logical thing is to play d7, d5. But I don't really like this move here, because after ed5, ed5, bishop b5 check may be slightly annoying. For instance, if I play bishop d7, there is something like queen e2 check. So white has a lot of annoying checks, forcing black playing not very active moves, occupying not very active places, not very active squares, right? So that's why a6 first, to prevent that. And now, from this point of view, a4 looks like a waste of time, because now I can play d5, that is exactly what I did. And after ed5, ed5, there is no bishop b5 check. If you play d4, let's say, I can play c4, I think. That's not a problem with this. And I control this d3 square, and this b4 square is weakened after a4. So maybe it's okay, I mean, for equality, for just a balanced position, but definitely not that great in the sense of fighting for initiative, fighting for the advantage. But it was definitely better, in my opinion, than playing d4 here, because this looks, in fact, quite dubious. Because now it is very close to French defense, right? But it's a better version for black, I guess, right? Very much better version, because this a6 in the vast majority of lines is a useful move for black, but this a4 is definitely not a useful move. And also it looks like a mix of different lines. So with the knight on c3, usually knight doesn't go to f3, so white tries to play e5 and f2, f4. So the knight, as you can see, just stops you from playing that. Also, if you don't want to play that line and you want to play something classic like e5, let's say, after knight f d7, pawn can go to c3, protecting this d4, and your central pawns d4 and e5 are much more vulnerable if compared to main lines of French defense. And once again, I don't like this a4 at all, so it doesn't look useful for white. That's why I played knight f6, being not afraid of e5 move, because I understood that this transposition to French will be very good for black, in fact, not for white. All right. You played bishop to g5, but now after cd4, well, black probably gets the advantage in the center. So after queen d4, attack your queen with a knight c6. And as I said during the game, again, this a6 is very useful and very good in the sense of controlling b5, preventing bishop from going to b5. If you take with the knight, which was probably slightly better than queen d4, maybe not, I'm not sure. But I consider this as a main line, in fact. I can choose between different moves, including bishop b4. Bishop b4 looks very cool. So again, if compared to normal French, there is no a3. So this bishop can stay here for a long time, which is nice. So it looks like McCatchin counterattack h6. Again, I'm sure that it is a better version for black, 100%. I can also try just e5. I think this looks very attractive as well. Attacking the knight. Bishop takes f6, g takes f6, the knight is under attack. Knight has to go somewhere. Let's say after knight e2 or knight f3, then just d4. Yeah, I have some problems with the pawn structure maybe, but I still believe that the fact that I have pair of bishops and stronger pawns in the center should be in the long run much better than much more important, I would say, than the fact that these pawns are somewhat weakened. I'm not that sure, but this looks attractive. Maybe this was the best way for white to play it, because taking with the queen was definitely quite bad. So now, after this, d4 wins on the spot, obviously, and if queen goes to correct square somewhere, I don't know, d2 or d3 or something, we just play d4, attacking the knight. So obviously the same like I played in the game. Of course, in this case, I don't win the material, but still, look at this position. It's quite annoying, I think, for white to play this. So I can protect d4 with the help of bishop c5, with the help of simple e5 move. And I will quickly start the attack on the queen side, and this a4 again just plays to black's favor. So I can use b4 square with many pieces. Knight can go to b4, attack in c2. Bishop can land there at some point, and so forth. I like this position from black's perspective. But still, it was probably the best for white to try this out. Not queen e3. Queen e3 is obviously lost. All right. So, the question, do you speak German, English, Ukrainian, and Russian? That's right, but I would say that I speak Ukrainian, Russian, English, and just a little German because, well, yeah, I live in Germany, but not for a long time. And I started learning German right after moving to Germany. And, well, my knowledge is already not that bad, but still, I wouldn't say that I speak German. So, as for other languages, yes, I speak Ukrainian for sure, I speak Russian for sure, I speak English for sure, but German, well, still have to learn a lot and still have to practice a lot. That is probably the most important thing. Okay, so let us continue. Well played. Didn't calculate this. Ban. All right. Next game. Let's play Alien King. Alien King, and again with black. Playing with black. E4. Let's try the same. Let's try C5 again. And E6. Maybe there will be the main line. Maybe there will be D4. Or something. Yeah, D4. Okay. And C4. Yeah, why not? If I don't attack E4, let's say, if I don't exert pressure on D4, why not to grab the space? And now black can come up with what? With hedgehog, I think. Like b6, bishop b7, d6, bishop e7, knight f6, knight e7, and so forth. And it's probably the best way for black to do this. Let's put the queen on c7 to start with, just to control e5. And exert some pressure on c4. It's a typical square for a queen in this line. After knight c3, I can try bishop to b4, but I'm not sure it makes sense in this concrete situation. So after knight f6, it would have had sense, I guess, attacking e4. But now after bishop b4, I attack nothing. So after bishop b4, there will be something like queen b3 attacking the bishop. And after this exchange on c3, white will have a pair of bishops. All right. So I will stick to just normal hedgehog setup. So knight f6 is a good move. Developing the piece. Controlling some central squares. Yes, I don't occupy the central squares, but I will control them with pawns and pieces. So this pawn d7 will go to d6 at some point. The question, do you like Paulson, Sicilian? Not necessarily. I just play it sometimes in blitz, just to show some ideas. In fact, I'm in the e5 player, so I play e5 on the move number 1 against e4. a3 prevents bishop b4 mainly. Okay. Let's keep developing the pieces. Knight c6. There was a suggestion of playing knight c6. Yeah, knight usually goes to d7 here. So on c6, it's, in the vast majority of cases, it's nothing to do, in fact. So sometimes after knight c6, there are some transpositions from English opening, from many different openings. So sometimes the knight is in fact on c6, and you know, black comes up with a maneuver like d6, knight to e5, and knight to d7. Just changing this position, because on d7 it is much more flexible. There are much more different options. Okay, f3. So bishop to d6 maybe, attacking that h2, forcing g3, forcing some weakening. But at bishop d6 there is knight b5. I'm blundering. So knight b5, a b5, knight b5. Typical thing, by the way. So bishop d6 isn't a move, 100%. I can try knight c6 in fact. So if the rook is not on c1, there is no knight e5. And then I can bring my knight through e5 to g6, another interesting idea that is possible in Poles and Sicilian. Maybe it's worth trying, maybe not. I don't know. Let's keep playing hedgehog. Bishop e2, d6. And b4, maybe not that great. White may regret, in fact, because it weakens c4. Gives me an object of attack. So let's start attacking it. Knight to e5 now doesn't necessarily create a threat of taking on c4. In fact, it doesn't. So maybe we should start with queen b8. Typical maneuver in hedgehog. So queen goes to a8. And then knight e5, knight c4 becomes a threat. I mean, right now, knight e5, knight c4. Knight to b3. Goes away from the center. Actually attacking my b6. And preparing a4, a5, I think. Let's castle. It's time to castle. So, as we may notice, my pieces don't cross the 5th rank. It doesn't mean that I'm worse. So this position is quite tricky, in fact. White can easily overestimate his chances here. What is great about this position, I don't occupy some squares, but I control them. So as you can see, all these squares are controlled. White can't occupy these squares with his pieces. And I'm ready for almost every possible undermining move here. d5, b5, a5. Well, a5 is bullshit, obviously, but I'm ready even for that. So two typical things are d5 and b5. Right, now d5 is very tempting, in fact. Let us try d5 or something. Or just knight e5 first. Let's bring the knight closer to the king. d5 was also quite interesting. So create a threat of bishop g3 sacrifice. But I wasn't sure it was correct. So it feels like I don't have enough pieces to attack there. Maybe there was a good idea to come up with a perpetual or something, but it's not quite clear. All right, knight a4. Now I can play b5. This looks very interesting. Or I can play just bishop c6. Attacking the knight and protecting b6. Asking white, why did you play this? And this is something interesting. So I'm just deflecting the bishop. So bishop can't take on b5, obviously, because of knight f3, which means I win some material already. But I have only 38 seconds, which is annoying. Which may stop me from winning the game. But it's definitely winning now. Well, I mean, great chances. It's time or not? I'm not sure, but have no time to evaluate everything here. Okay, 20 seconds. I could have captured on e4. Didn't notice this possibility just because of the time trouble. Okay, now it's time to take. Yeah, it's just lost. Okay. Your opinion, do you think it is possible to play d4 e5 against a 2550 GM and get away with it? Have no idea. Maybe if you're perfectly prepared, like, you know, all the lines after that, it's probably, well, something playable. But everything depends on your style, in fact. Everything depends on your style. Everything depends on your style. Maybe you just prefer positions that arise after d4, e5, and you feel very comfortable in these positions. So I don't know. It's a very hard question to answer just the only way. I'm not sure. Okay, let's talk about this guy. So hedgehog, right? So hedgehog. Look at this position once again. So it looks awful, right? Especially when you look at this from white's perspective, it looks like black has no space and black is about to suffocate. But black has enough space to maneuver his pieces, surprisingly. Like rook e8, queen a8, there are a lot of, well, these small moves, short moves, slightly improving the position, and at some point there is a possibility to continue with a d6, d5 or b7, b5, and well, position becomes quite complicated, and at some point white can simply miss the moment when d5 all of a sudden becomes possible to play, because in the vast majority of cases it feels like white controls this central square sufficiently. In fact, this d6, d5 is played mainly, in the vast majority of cases, just sacrificing the pawn, sacrificing the material, but activating the rest of pieces, activating all these pieces that are patiently waiting here, being placed on the 7th rank. So they are actually collecting the energy, and this potential energy when it becomes kinetic energy, in many cases appears very, very powerful. Great thing. So bishop c7, g3. It was possible to consider d5, I guess. I also considered this move. The point is that I can sacrifice my bishop here, but it didn't feel like I have enough resources to continue this attack. So, in fact, I have only one queen. I can potentially add the knights, but it was definitely not in time. Not the right moment to start this. So that's why I played knight e5, exerting some pressure, but mainly trying to provoke white to play this f4, in which case e4 becomes quite weak. There is additional work for my queen, my bishop, attacking this e4 using this long diagonal. And also actually exerting pressure on this pawn in general, because after g3 it is weakened, right? And my knight has two obvious objects of attack, so the one on c4, another one on f3. So I already like this position from black's perspective, in fact, because I have a clearer plan. I have objects of attack while white is struggling to find the object of attack in black's camp. So this bishop on c7, at first glance, it looks stupid, right? Being limited with own pawns. At least it protects pawns and at first glance does nothing. In fact, well, it does a great job. It does great work. Because since it protects this b6 and d6, white doesn't have a concrete object of attack. It's really hard to find it. So most likely, instead of playing g3, it was better to think of playing king h1. Yeah, intending to play bishop g1 or something like this. Maybe even earlier, somewhere here. Instead of playing rook d1 even, just to play something like this, like king h1, bishop c7, okay, bishop g1. Protecting everything without making a concession, without making this g3 move or something. And then white can continue with the plan of a4, a5. I think that is the most annoying plan, in fact. So once white puts the pawn on a5, there is a change of the pawn structure. The knight gets to a5. In this case, black is really struggling. But for this, the rook is in many cases needed on a1, in fact. So maybe I would have avoided even playing rook to c1 that early. So something like prophylaxis on the king side first, and then trying to play this a4, a5. And maybe I would even changed the placement of rooks. So this rook on a1 and this from f1 goes to c1. Maybe this way, something like this. So one rook on a1, another one on c1. In this case, it looks slightly more logical because the plan is to do something like a4, a5 or something. Don't know. It's a very complicated position, in fact. But definitely, I would have avoided g3 and weakening this f3. By the way, this actually decided. So after you actually weaken this pawn, I played knight e5, and you already blundered this idea that the bishop is now pinned deadly to this f3 pawn. So after this, it's just deflection and so forth. Okay. But this compressed structure, says Twyhozak for black in the game, here reminds me Nigel Short's King's March against Tiemann. That's interesting. Okay. I believe Karakin played this compressed last year against Magnus. Well, hedgehog is not refuted, so it is playable. I mean, you can play it. Probably the most annoying thing against the hedgehog is that version that arises in English opening without playing e4, or maybe not. So I guess this is the most annoying thing. Like, let's say c4. Knight f6, knight f3, c5, e6, b6, bishop g2, bishop b7, castles, e6, knight c3, bishop e7. Not even playing d4, but playing rook e1. Now let's say a6, e4, d6, d4, cd4, knight e4, queen c7, and bishop e3. Yeah, this line is the most annoying for black in my opinion, and white starts the attack quickly, f4, g4, g5, and so forth. Yeah, this line requires perfect knowledge, but well, in blitz it's playable. I used to play this against grandmasters many years ago, and in blitz games it was okay. So I won some games, they won some games, so it depends. But that is, in my opinion, the most annoying line against hedgehog. All right. 9's f3 violates opening principles. No, f3 it doesn't. So white makes a pawn move, right? But position is closed, so it's not that critical. And it's important to protect e4 with the pawn because there's bishop on b7. Otherwise, it's quite annoying. So I think it's not a violation of opening principles. I guess it's fine. Okay, let's play one more game. Let us play d of c2. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly, but still. All right, so continuing with this pieces control over central squares. d5, bishop g2. So my knight controls e5 and d4. Ready opening. And black decided to play this rock solid approach. I also prefer it with black, but I don't play c5. I play bishop e7 and castles. c5 should be also quite good, quite playable. So how to react to this c5? Definitely white has to think of playing in the center. Maybe right now against c5 when diagonal is no longer that close potentially. I mean diagonal h1, a8. Diagonal of this bishop g2. Maybe it makes sense to play d4 and then c4, just aggressively fighting for this diagonal and trying to open it up. And c4, right? Should be playable. So again, flexible approach. I started with absolutely different things, so I didn't want to occupy central squares with pawns. But once I saw the opportunity, I just changed the approach. Yeah, absolutely correct comment. So it may be a transposition to Tarish defense. So if black doesn't take on c4, let's say, and play something like bishop e7, I can take on the d5, and it's definitely a transposition to Tarish. And queen b6 may lead even to Rubinstein Salve, I guess. So queen b6 is a very old move if it is a move in general. Whew, interesting. So cd5 should be considered now. e5, knight c3, then cd4. Or maybe cd5, e5, dc5, bishop c5, knight c3 is a correct approach here. So I'm not a big expert in these positions, but let's try it. So it looks like a natural thing to try to create an isolated pawn at very least. Maybe taking on c5 first was more accurate, I don't know. Let's see. After this, it's no longer that important. But I think knight takes d4 was playable. Maybe I'm wrong, don't know. So now knight c3, cd4 is unclear to me. So dc5 looks like a straightforward thing to do. So after bishop c5, I just play knight c3, creating sort of knight a4, grabbing this bishop on c5. If queen takes on c5, the queen will be also quite vulnerable there. And there is an isolated pawn to attack. d5 is under attack as well. Have you ever played with new GM Andrew Tam? That is going to be interesting if that happens. Maybe there will be something like that, but well, I mean, next week I will be streaming on Thursday this titled arena, and maybe there will be a game against this guy, but in Bullet he's just a monster. I'm not a Bullet player at all, but I think it's interesting experience in general just to play this tournament. The previous one was won by Magnus Carlsen, so Magnus Carlsen also participated there. Okay. And black queen feels misplaced in this structure. Yeah, I don't think that b6 is great. Square. Now I think I can play knight a4. I can take on c5. If there are anything better than that, I'm not sure. So let's take. And now. It is possible to bring the bishop to e3. That is the most obvious thing to do here. So bishop e3 attacking the queen, then knight goes to d4. And I'm just playing this typical thing against isolated pawn. It's also interesting to try something like a3 here, preparing b4 and bishop b2, occupying the bishop, occupying this diagonal with the bishop. I'm going to do this. I think it's slightly more promising to have the bishop on that diagonal if compared to e3 position, which may be potentially vulnerable. For example, if bishop here, at some point there is knight g4, something like this. Not very pleasant, I mean. So let's try this. Why not? On Thursday, yeah, Paul, on Thursday. It will be on Thursday, I guess. 18th of January. It will be Thursday, yeah. 1 p.m. Pacific time. 10 p.m. Central European time. Again, if I'm not mistaken. Gorgeous position. With pair of bishops against isolated pawn. But isolated pawn is usually not enough. So let's try to find a weakness on the king side as well. Typical plan of bringing the g-pawn to the game. I can take on a7, but first I will play rook c1. Preventing rook c4 and any sort of activity of that kind. Queen to a6, protecting a7 pawn and attacking e2 at the same time. Interesting. Multi-purpose move. And I think I have to play e3 because otherwise there is a problem with taking on c1 with the rook, something like this. Alright, let's continue with this. It makes the knight quite passive now. Oh, knight h5, I expected knight e8. I think now I can do what? I can do this. Bishop f3. Attacking the knight, and I can't see a good defense. So knight e8 was interesting. This doesn't help because dc4 isn't possible. And this just leads to the extra minor piece. All right. Okay, so what went wrong? First of all, I don't like the idea of playing c5 here, but if you are a Tarsh player, probably it's your move. If you are not, then I would recommend playing bishop e7. That is what I usually do with black. So in the vast majority of cases, white plays d3. If white plays d4 and c4, it leads just to a transposition to the closed Catalan, also extremely solid thing for playing with black, even playing for a win, because white usually plays Catalan when he wants to play for a win, and once white starts playing for a win there are also chances for black. That's how it works. If white plays d3, preparing knight to d2 followed by e4, a typical thing that happens in ready opening, then after castling and knight to d2, you can play the Aronians knight to c6. Now, if there is e4, then there is something typical for reti, but the bishop is still on c8, and usually it is on g4 in the main line, but it's not necessarily a great square for the bishop. So the bishop can be placed on e6, in the vast majority of cases much better than on g4, and sometimes it even goes through this b6 to a6 square. Sometimes there's also interesting position, something like this. And if after knight c6 white changes his mind and plays d4 or something, then knight e4 is possible, just like in the game, I don't remember exactly, but it could have been the game between Kramnik and Aronian or something like that. And black was fine there. Followed by f5, an interesting version of this stone wall without the pawn on c6. Well, white's pieces are definitely misplaced and not very active. So everything is more or less fine there. So is it really reti or King's Indian attack? Well, King's Indian attack is when white plays rook e1, e4, knight f1, h4, knight h2, and the attack there. Maybe I'm confusing the names of openings, but well, this approach of knight f3, g3, bishop g2 castling is already reti for me. d3 and c4 is reti. Okay, maybe you're right, guys. I'm not going to actually prove my point because I'm not sure that I'm right. All right. For me, reti starts with knight f3, g3, bishop g2. That is already reti for me. Okay. And that's why I call all these things reti. Okay. So, but it may transpose to many different openings, of course. Okay. So I wanted to say a few words about this. I don't think queen b6 is good. So in my opinion, if you play Tarish, okay, just play bishop e7. After cd5, ed5, sorry, it's the same, but the queen occupies much more pleasant position, and it's not the object of attack here. So knight c3, castles, just a normal Tarish defense, the main line. So dc5, bishop c5, bishop g5, let's say. Oh, sorry, not bishop h6, of course. Bishop g5, bishop goes to e6. So I usually play, when I play with white, and it's a rare case when I play something like this with white in some blitz games, play something like knight a4, very straightforward plan. And after bishop e7, there's some that just play bishop e3, intending to occupy c5 square, something like this. Okay. Okay. Yeah. But that is normal playable thing for black. Okay. Queen b6, I don't believe in the power of this move. I just continued with the most natural thing. I just took on c5, played knight c3, creating sort of this knight a4, attacking the bishop and the queen there. After cd5, I was curious about knight takes d4, but I'm not sure that black is ready for this sort of thing. Maybe that was playable, maybe not. I can consider, so like knight takes d4, cd4, and now what? Now maybe taking on e6, bishop e6, and well, not sure. We should definitely check some classic games of Rubinstein. Maybe somebody else. But I do believe that's, well, it should be good for white. This or that way. Maybe I was not that accurate. Maybe dc5 was the accurate move. And after bishop takes c5, to take on d5, and if knight takes d5, a3. And this starts looking like Boris Gelfand against Ivanchuk. So the very first game that Boris Gelfand analyzes in his super book, making positional decision making, right? So yeah, if a5, this weakens b5 or something like that. Yeah, maybe dc5 was a move. Maybe dc5. All right. In any case, what we achieved here was very good for white after this ed5, 100%. Now, pawn is hanging, I grab the bishop. I have two bishops and I play against isolated pawns, so I definitely have better chances. Okay, guys, I'm going to play the last game right now because it's already quite late, right? We're doing this for 2 hours, even more than 2 hours already. I guess it's not that bad for the very first episode of Learn from Chess Blitz in this new year. So I'm going to play the last game. Many thanks for your support. Many thanks for subscribing. Really appreciate it. And if you want to make a donation, you're also welcome, of course. So, knight f6 against d4. So 1,004 subscribers now. Okay. One more is needed, right? To make it a good looking number. Nimsu Indian. Bishop b4. Queen c2, classic line. Castles. And knight to f3. This brand new approach. I would call it this way. I think b6 is the best move, but let's just play d6. Also interesting idea, just controlling the squares, d5 and e5, and preparing e6, e5 at a proper moment. Knight to d7. Glad I discovered your Chess Blitz series. I'm really enjoying your commentary. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, you're welcome. e3. Preparing what? Preparing bishop to d3. So now let's play e5. Not sure it's great, but looks playable. Andrey, have you played Ben Feingold? He started streaming on Lee Chess recently. No. Didn't have a chance. Maybe it will happen very soon because there is a new season of Pro Chess League about to start, and maybe he will play for one of the teams, and maybe there will be a chance to play against him. There will be a chance to play against many great players, I would say. So last year I played, for example, against Movsesian, who was 2700s at that point. And, well, I played a very nice game against him. This year I will play much more times for my team Las Vegas Desert Reds. And there will be more chances to play against very top players. But as near as February 3rd, there will be a great thing, because we're going to play Baden-Baden in German Bundesliga, and I'm playing on the board number 2. So there will be somebody like Anand, maybe Svidler, I don't know, somebody, maybe, have no idea, because Baden-Baden is just a monster team. All right. I mean, I don't care about Ben Feingold. Okay. Bishop h4. What to do here? Let's continue developing pieces. Okay, 1007 subscribers. That's nice. Great learning session. You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you. If nothing changes dramatically, it should happen each and every week. So at the same time, I'm really going to make this consistently. But there will be, of course, some breaks, pauses whenever I play in Bundesliga or anywhere else. Bishop to d3 looks strange, because now I can play e4. I can start with the g5, I think. And then I will play e4. This looks like a winning of the minor piece. Excuse me. And e4. Fork. Where is that guy with the fork and the knife emoji? Please do it again, because there is again the same thing. Fork. By the way, Norderstedt never loses to Baden-Baden like 8-0. There is always somebody who plays a draw. Maybe this year it will be a much better score. All right, a3. Let's just take on c3 and take on d3 or something. Okay, here's the fork and the knife and even the plate. Fantastic, guys, fantastic. Taking the bishop. Now extra minor piece. A lot of forks, a lot of knives. Yeah, but Fuchsia was first. That's true. That's so true. So Fuchsia wins. Castles. A4. So by the way, this is a typical thing here. I'm just fixing this a3 and b2. Of course, it doesn't really matter already because I have extra minor piece, but still, very pleasant thing to do. In the vast majority of cases, just to have this pawn structure, because c4 in this case becomes also quite weak because b2 never has a chance to support it. Okay. Oh, this is also very pleasant, right? When the rook is on a2. Okay, I can take. I can play bishop b1 and then knight b3. I'm not sure I need it. Let's just activate the pieces. So it's very hard for white to survive it, especially after this. I can take on d4, another blunder. Chess is better than life. You never have to watch the forks. Yep. On the other hand, you have to predict them. You have to think about forks, which is really stupid in real life, right? To think about forks. Okay, anyway, thank you a lot for this. Of course, in this particular case, in this game, everything happened after e4. So bishop d3 was a decisive mistake here. Instead of playing bishop to d3, it was much better to play bishop to e2. That is what white usually does here. That is what white usually tries to do here. And another advice is not to play d5 so early. It's much better to keep the tension. In many cases, white takes on e5 and then utilizes the open d file. So it does something like this. After d takes c5, there is rook going to d1, and the queen starts feeling not very comfortable here on the d file. But that's, of course, the question of the theory mainly. So what black tried to do here is, well, black controlled the center and played e5 at the right moment when it felt like the right move, right? So here I actually started with one approach and finished with another one. So I started occupying center with some of my pawns. So as a conclusion to this session, doesn't matter what you do, which approach you use. The point is, never forget about the central squares. Control central squares with pawns, with pieces, doesn't matter, but you have to control the center because center matters a lot. Thanks a lot for subscribing. Thanks a lot for supporting me. Thanks a lot for donations. Thanks a lot for this amazing commentary in live chat. That was really fun and interesting to read that. That was really cool to answer your questions. And for newcomers who just discovered my show today, now you know where to come and when to come to learn something new, to play a bit against an international master. I hope you appreciated the show. I hope you don't regret about the time you spent on it. So many thanks. Wish you all the best during the next week. And well, to know my schedule, just subscribe to my Twitter account. There you will find my schedule for the upcoming week. There will be a lot of different shows. I'm not only on YouTube and Lichess, there are also other channels I use. So chess.com, chess24. Just follow me on Twitter and you will be notified about any chess related activity of mine. All right. Yeah. Once again, many thanks and see you very soon. Bye bye.